The Melbourne Vixens have done it again, an amazing one-goal victory coming from behind. Things go from bad to worse for the defending champions, the Queensland Firebirds, and the Waikato Bay of Plenty Magic notch up their first win of the season. As I say hello and welcome to Centre Pass, the official video podcast of the ANZ Championship. Dan Ryan here alongside Sherelle McMahon. And Sherelle, another incredible round of netball at the highest level.
It was. I mean, you know, a couple of the games there were incredibly tight and some really good contests, individual contests on the court too that we saw. So it was a great round.
Well, sure, let's have a look at all the results from round 5 of the ANZ Championship. It, of course, started with the Adelaide Thunderbirds defeating the West Coast Fever by 12 goals in Perth. The Vixens, somehow, from somewhere, got up over the Queensland Firebirds by a goal in Melbourne. The Mystics too good for the Central Pulse. The Magic getting their first win over the season against the Canterbury Tactics, and of course the Steel and the Swifts having the bite. Sure, let's start with the first game that we're going to have a close look at. That is the Thunderbirds and the West Coast Fever. A really interesting start to this game with the players walking out onto court, shaking hands, and all of a sudden the lights went out.
The lights went out on everybody, and it kind of, you know, affected the broadcast and everything, and it kind of throws you a bit. Everything is timed so to the minute to the second, really, when you're preparing for a match. So I'm sure it threw all the girls quite a bit.
Well, the Thunderbirds responded the better. They had a terrific start to the game. They led 25-15 in the first half. Keeping the Fever to 15 goals was an incredible feat for them. Catherine Cox scoring her first goal of the match 26 minutes into the game.
That's right. So for the Fever to be kept to 15 goals till half-time with two incredibly dominant, potent shooters up that end is just a great credit to the Thunderbirds' defensive lineup. We've spoken a lot about it throughout this season, how well that three have really combined and how much pressure they're putting on attacking lineups.
Catherine Cox, Sherelle, 8 goals from 17 at 47%. She lasted the full game at goal attack. Still struggling in that position at this point in the season. What's your perception of it at the moment?
Yeah, it's interesting watching her play through that goal attack position, her combination with Caitlin Bassett. I think I saw some matches of them in pre-season, and that combination seemed to be working much, I don't know, more fluidly and evenly then. Coxie was getting into the circle and creating some space for herself as well as Caitlin, and I think she's maybe gone a little bit down the track of playing just to get Caitlin the ball rather than, you know, being a real presence herself, which she can be so well. You
mentioned the Adelaide Thunderbirds defence. Shani Layton had an outstanding game. Her stats: 4 rebounds, 3 intercepts, 9 deflections. She's now had 2 of the best goal shooters in the game, Catherine Latu last week and Caitlin Bassett this week, benched from the game. So doing a wonderful job as the backbone for the Thunderbirds.
Yeah, she is. And as I mentioned, that defensive lineup, it's not just Shani, but it's the three of them working together incredibly well to shut down, you know, someone like Catherine Latu and then this week Caitlin Bassett, 2 incredibly strong shooters, and Shani gives away inches to both of them, really. So it's, you know, they're doing a great job together.
So the Adelaide Thunderbirds 12-goal winners over the West Coast Fever. The next game we want to have a look at, Sherelle, was probably the biggest one of the round. An unbelievable contest, the Melbourne Vixens and the Queensland Firebirds, of course the defending champions. The Firebirds were the better team for the majority of the match. They got up by 8 goals in that last quarter, but again, the Melbourne Vixens coming from behind to steal it.
They did it the week before against the Magic. They led for 15 seconds of that match. The Magic were up for the entire match. This week, the Vixens led for 1 second. Literally 1 second was the time that they were ahead for. And the Firebirds really did dominate right across the full quarters. And it was just in that last quarter, the pressure came on and the Vixens again stood strong and were able to cope with that pressure.
Some crucial changes by Julie Hornwig, the coach of the Vixens. She introduced Sarah Wall into centre for the fourth quarter. Haven't seen a lot of Sarah Wall this year, but she injected some great pace with that mid-court. And then probably the biggest change, Karen Howarth into goal shooter, 13 from 16 in the fourth quarter, with the Vixens scoring 19 goals in that last term.
Well, both teams actually made quite a few changes. You know, we saw Amy Steele starting on the bench. And as you mentioned, a couple of changes throughout the Vixens lineup, and Sarah Wall coming on into that centre position. You know, the combination with Chelsea Tregear and Maddie Brown's been great this season, but not clicking so well. But you know, Sarah came on, and as you said, she was so speedy, and the ball movement really started to baffle the Firebirds' defensive line. And Karen, this week it was her being the hero, shooting the final goal and keeping her cool under pressure.
Yep, paid dividends, that's for sure for Julie Hornig. 1-goal winners for the Melbourne Vixens. The last game I want to have a chat about, Sherelle, is the Magic and the Tactics. The Magic getting up over the line against the Tactics, their first win of the season, and their season probably starts from this point on.
Well, it has to for them, really. I mean, they amazingly have started the season much more slowly than what I thought they would have. And you know, a couple of their players coming in and starting to really find some great form. I mean, Irene van Dijk shooting 100%, 33 goals, and that's where we're used to the volume of goals we're used to seeing her shoot, and that's what they need to do. They need to use that strength.
Jo Harton is a player we should mention. Of course, she's the English import for the Tactics. 49 goals at 84% against Casey Williams and Liana de Bruin. Probably had the better of both of those players when she was on them. An outstanding performance from her individually.
That's right. I mean, a great individual performance at any time, let alone when you're playing against the best goalkeeper, you know, arguably in the world. And you know, with that combination there, she's doing a great job. She's slotted into that lineup very, very well.
Well, sure, let's have a look at the ladder of the ANZ Championship, how it stands after 5 rounds of the competition. And the Melbourne Vixens sitting pretty on top, still undefeated, the only team yet to drop a game in season 2012. Then it's the Thunderbirds and the Mystics, both on 8 points. The Steel rounding out the top 4. But Sherelle, as you mentioned, this competition is so close, 4th to last, only 1 game really separating all of them.
It is. It's incredible, really. The 4th place Steel have consolidated 2 wins. The last place Tactics just 1. So effectively, there could only be 1 win away from the bottom team coming up there. I know there's a lot of other things in play with percentages and things, but it's just so incredibly tight this season. It's great.
Sherelle, who is your performer of the week for round 5?
Well, people may say that I'm a little bit biased, but I've got to say that the performance of the week was the Melbourne Vixens, and you know, I can single out a couple of people. Karen Howarth nailing that goal at the end, Jiva Mentor putting the pressure on when the ball came into Ramelda in those last few seconds. But really, it was a team effort, and to keep the confidence and keep the focus and coming back against a team like the Firebirds from 8 goals down, that's got to be it for me.
Certainly incredible performance. My performance of the week is going to go to the biggest hit probably we've seen in the ANZ Championship in a very long time. Who says netball is a soft sport? There's no doubt about that. A huge clash between Shani Layton and Catherine Cox over in Perth, both contesting the ball and both hit the ground pretty hard. And as a result, Shani Layton getting a couple of stitches at the top of her head, Sherelle.
Well, it was a very, very tough clash. And look, they say no non-contact sport. I don't think so. Not non-contact.
Certainly not a non-contact sport at all. Let's have a look now at all the games coming up for round 6 of the ANZ Championship. This is how the draw looks. It will start in Sydney on Sunday with the Swifts taking on the Pulse. We then go to Brisbane where the Firebirds take on the Northern Mystics in a grand final rematch. Looking forward to that one. The Magic and the Fever in Tauranga. That should be a huge clash. The Vixens travelling to Christchurch to take on the Tactics, and then Monday night in Adelaide, the Adelaide Thunderbirds taking on the Southern Steel. Sherelle, let's have a chat about the grand final rematch. This should be an absolute beauty. The Firebirds up against the Mystics.
Yeah, the grand final rematch, and who would have thought that the situation would have been as it is after 5 rounds, where you know, the Firebirds have got 4 losses under their belt, and it's going to be a really important match for both of these teams. Really, the Mystics can really consolidate that top 4 spot, and the Firebirds still within a chance of getting back there, and they can. They're not that far away.
Very important game for both teams of the competition. Another huge game will be the Magic up against the Fever. Magic ranked 9th, Fever ranked 5th. This is the Fever's 3rd game in New Zealand in 4 weeks, so a big test for them. Huge test.
I mean, they're heading back to New Zealand again, so it's been a bit of a tough start to the season for them, but they are right up there. They're only sitting in 5th position, just out of the 4, so tough match for both sides.
Another game, Sherelle, will be the Thunderbirds and the Southern Steel, a top 4 clash. Of course, Thunderbirds in 2nd, the Steel in 4th. Both looking to consolidate a place in the top 4. Strong ties with the Steel, with Nat Avellino and Demelza McLeod, both, of course, hailing from Adelaide. Steel coming off a bye, so they'll be well rested and dangerous for the Thunderbirds.
They will be, and they have been putting together some great play, really, after, you know, we spoke earlier in the year about them. They've only had 3 players still remaining from last season, but they are pulling it together very nicely. So again, just a really great clash.
Well, Sherelle, the good news is we're now dead at level in our tipping competition.
Is that good news, is it?
That's great news for me, Sherelle. Great news for me. 16 all. Who are your tips for round 6 of the competition?
Okay, I'm finding it really tough this week, but I'm going for the Swifts, the Mystics, the Magic, the Vixens and the Thunderbirds.
Well, good tipping, Sherelle. I'm going exactly the same. So we're going to say dead even. There's no doubt about that for the next round. Well, that is all we have time for this week's edition of Centre Pass. Thank you very much for joining us. Make sure you jump onto the ANZ Champs website and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Check out the 10 Sport website as well, and also Sky Sport in New Zealand. All your latest news and netball content is there. And of course, San Remo Fantasy Netball. Check your local guides for all of the broadcast details. Cheryl McMahon, thank you again for joining us.
Not a problem.
We'll catch you again next week on Centre Pass. Until then, goodbye for now. Thank you to our sponsors, our principal sponsor,
Associate sponsors,
support sponsors and suppliers,
and broadcast partners.